Christian, great to see you again, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks, Rajat. Great to see you. And I see you still have the wallpaper, but obviously AI adjusted it slightly. So I see a picture behind your head there.
I figured, try to give some color into the wall a little bit. So I added the picture in here. Now you might be wondering, okay, that's a crazy statement, and that the picture is more or less black and white. How does it add color? And uh, and I would say there was a song that really had an impact on me, which said something about the keys of the piano are black and white, yet they produce the most colorful songs. So therefore, I hope the black and white picture is producing some more colorful images or so,
Oh, absolutely.
also in our
Absolutely
discussion.
does. Absolutely does. The last time when you introduced your beautiful wallpaper behind you, we talked about how the role of the CMO is evolving and the impact of AI on this one. And we touched on a couple of topics, like
Yeah.
the challenge young people face and leadership and stuff like that. So I think there are a couple of topics which we will also in future episodes probably dive a little bit deeper. But today we would like to discuss a little bit about, the three most deadly mistakes CMOs should avoid when looking at AI.
I
So
like your
Rajat,
choice
what
of
is
words, by the way, Christian. Is deadly.
deadly?
Actually, it could be potentially career ending, or it could be, bringing the company down into the dumpers. So you're absolutely right. Can be deadly, but for our lovely audience out there, we don't make it so melodramatic.
Yeah, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. So what are, based on your experience, what are the most common mistakes that you see out there when marketing is looking at AI, and what would you recommend to CMOs what they should better avoid?
Yeah. I think, I mean, we are working in, for example, in the area of automation. We're doing automation, of course, for marketing. We're doing automation for multiple other areas and so forth. But sticking today to the marketing portion of the bit, there is multitude of things. But let me see what would be my top three. There's also, I'm into sayings today, Christian. It seems that I want to come up with more and more sayings. So there was a saying, I think, from Abraham Lincoln, if I may, that if you have to chop the tree, then you spend 80% of the time sharpening the axe, right? And 20% of the time is actually doing the chopping of the tree. I mean, maybe the percentages are 79 to 21 or something like that, but let's just go with 80-20, okay? And the idea behind it is the first biggest challenge is that you need to do your homework. You need to be able to prepare, what is it exactly that you're trying to achieve, right? And this is something that we notice again and again and it's not generally towards the CMOs, but it's generally across the field is people don't necessarily do the adequate amount of preparatory work that's necessary in order to be able to implement the AI, or in order to be able to implement automation led by the AI, or the transformation. And I would say out of the multitude of ones, that would probably be my top one.
Okay. Would you see this as an explanation why at the moment so many companies do not see an return on investment on the AI projects? I mean, I recently stumbled over a couple of numbers. Like, for example, there was a Gartner survey quoting that only around 5% of CMOs report that they see an ROI on their AI projects throughout the organization when looking at marketing. Or there's even one which I found even more shocking. So I read this recently in the Harvard Business Review that based on the S&P Global Marketing Intelligence report, 42% of companies abandoned their AI projects in 2025. So,
Yeah.
so this is basically a little bit working against the overall storyline, saying, okay, AI is successful, is proving to be a good investment and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And this is also
I
backed
mean,
up
it
by one.
leads to the point that we discussed in our first one, if you remember, is AI just a hype, as an example, or was it the second episode that we did? And it kind of, I think, again, this is my personal view. I think it just kind of ties into the fact that, how people are actually measuring the AI, as an example. let's say that it's you're using AI just to do, for example, and I think Gartner even touches on that in one of their webinars or so. That if you're just doing, let's say, incremental improvement in productivity, okay, that's not necessarily transformational. That's not necessarily something that's bringing the changes by leaps and bounds where you're able to show, okay, yesterday the task was being performed by, 6 people, and tomorrow it's being performed by, let's say, an AI, right? They were working 8 to 5, and now the robot is working 7 by 24, right? Those are kind of some of the transformational changes. But if you're doing, for example, incremental changes where you're only improving the productivity by X% or something like that, now suddenly the people who were doing the task or who were doing the job or so, they have more time, right? If they're not taking on additional projects, or if you're not really focusing them to further improve other areas where you can literally count the cash, right? I think this is one of the leading contributors to why sometimes the companies don't see so-called ROI, or the CFOs don't see the ROIs that they're looking for. And then you, of course, sit in your executive round together with the CEO, together with the COO, and COO just kind of is looking at the numbers. Excuse me, the CFO is looking at the numbers, and he or she will say, "Oh, how do we calculate it?" Right? And then it becomes difficult to assess. The second one is, a lot of times the companies are also looking to say, okay, who should be doing this assessment? Who should be counting the numbers, which are saying, okay, what exactly is the improvement or so? Is it still the task of the CMO, who has actually potentially done the implementation the way he was thinking about doing, or she was thinking about doing, and has now moved on? Or is it something that belongs to somebody from the let's say the finance department or so, who should be your finance partner, and that they're calculating in terms of how the ROI is happening. So I think from here, a lot of times I do also have to here agree with Gartner. I think part of the reason is simply because yeah, the improvement is incremental, and it's difficult to quantify often.
It is. And isn't so? So definitely, I fully agree that you need to measure the right things. You need to have the right baseline, and then look into that, like from all aspects. Absolutely agree on that, and I think this is something which you and your company is also doing with a lot of clients. So, and helping on this one.
I mean, if you remember the days of our yesteryears when we were working on different projects or so, I mean, we also had to kind of think about, okay, if we are making an investment, for example, going out to an event, and we should touch on this a little bit later. You go out to a marketing event, or you go out to some kind of where you have like a Veranstaltung, right? So where you're doing presentations, or you're going out to some kind of place where you have all the customers coming together or so. How do you measure the success in marketing, right? Is it how many leads did you collect, or how many leads led to the sales that you collected? Was there any direct revenue associated to the activities that you did or so? And often it is a challenge, right? You kind of have to work on quantifying it out. But if you're not having all your processes down, if you have not kind of noted down exactly how you'll be measuring the things, it becomes difficult, right? And then you're sitting there saying, okay, well, what's your ROI, right? And next year you've asked for the budget to go to the event, and then the CEO says, well, I'm so sorry, but or the CFO, better yet, comes back and says, well, last year we didn't really see exactly what we wanted to have, right? So it's
You mentioned
it's
an
a
important. You mentioned an important topic there with the baseline. So for the measurement, you need to have the right baseline, and also need to have the groundwork done in order to then measure properly the impact of any investment, be it
yeah.
AI or be it anything else. But that reminds me also of like thinking about the baseline or the groundwork that needs to be done first before applying any tools or any methodologies. So don't you think that a lot of companies, because they sit back and they have so high expectations about AI, they say, okay, they will solve all my problems, so I'll just wait and wait for the next model of from Anthropic or OpenAI or whoever it is. And shouldn't companies first look at the basics? Like, for example, when looking into marketing, looking at the marketing supply chain, like what is being done by headquarter, what is being done in the countries, how
Yeah.
are campaigns executed, how are countries handing over, how do we work with sales, how do we hand over leads, for example, to sales, how do we brief sales, and so on.
Yeah.
So isn't this kind of the groundwork that companies need to do first
It's not only
before
the
then
groundwork,
applying any
Christian, but
tools?
it's actually my second pet peeve. If we were touching on I would say, let's say the top three. We don't want to bore the audience completely or so, but if we were choosing the top three, that one will probably be my number two, which is that I got this AI and it's going to now fix everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like the miracle cure, and it's going to introduce automation and it's going to do this and it's going to do that, and then suddenly you get there, and then somebody out there tells you, you go through your LinkedIn profile, right? Every day there's tons of stuff coming at you, and then they say, oh, today you need LLMs, and no, you need SLMs, and no, you need agentic AIs, and no, you need this, and then your head is already spinning, right? And then you said, yeah, but I bought this general purpose AI, and it should have been doing something, but you're telling me that I cannot read documents with it, right? And get the data out of it. Or you're telling me it's not capable of learning and then finding me we talked, I think, the other day about persona-based marketing or something like that, or what's the next best action that we want to implement, right? So one of the things, at least at my end, when I'm doing the discussions together with customers, we clearly tell them, right? Every AI is not like your one pill that fixes everything. You perhaps need a multitude of AIs, or a multitude of human in the loop plus an AI, or you need something like document processing, kind of an AI plus a LLM plus, I don't know, some kind of an input device, which is doing anything else. So you need to be able to orchestrate, all of this stuff here. And it's not just, kind of, okay, I bought an AI, now I'm going to be able to, fix everything very quickly.
Exactly, and it was basically the same. It's not the first time that we see this phenomenon. I would say, I mean, for all the marketing folks out there, they might remember the implementation or the start of marketing automation, where everybody thought, okay, well, this solve all the problems. We have automatic leads. We lay on the beach with a cocktail in hand, and everything is fine. And it wasn't. Basically, marketing automation was then just exposing the crappy data that existed in a lot of companies. So maybe it's the similar with AI, that AI is not solving all the problems, but it's exposing poor data quality, poor
Yeah.
structure that
Well,
exists in a company, right?
it's not only poor data quality, Christian, but it goes a step further, right? And by the way, again, I would love to hear the comments and feedback from the audience here as well, because what are your experiences with the stuff that you guys are working on and stuff out there? Our experience, my experience has been primarily um, a few years back, there was a big trend towards moving the complete set of data into a data lake, right? So you had dispersed data, means the data was sitting at different locations or so. And then you said, okay, the first thing we need to do is bring everything together, and then we can sort it out, right? And what ended up happening for most of the people was that they didn't create a massive data lake. They ended up creating, a data swamp. And in essence, once you have this data swamp, then you just become overwhelmed, right? Your AI, if it's not trained properly, if it's not, the preparatory work is not done, suddenly you let it loose on this data, right? And then you're kind of getting only garbage back, or you're getting what you think are hallucinations. In the mind of the AI, it makes perfect sense, but you're kind of like, well, that doesn't add up, or that doesn't make sense, right? So it's really important to make sure that people understand that that the data itself, what is sitting there is what's the AI is absorbing, right? And by the way, folks out there, don't forget, at least for the European markets, GDPR, very, very important. I think there have been also recent cases where data leakages have resulted in heavy fines, right? So that's something I know, Christian, you're a subject matter expert in that, especially around marketing. Or you can contact myself and we can give you some good guidance in terms of how to actually manage that when you're implementing your AI.
Yeah. You're touching a very valid point, which basically gets us to maybe to the second biggest mistake to avoid when looking at AI. And that's everything around data security, privacy, governance, and everything. I mean, looking at AI at the moment and how people use it, especially, so it's not the failure of the tool, it's how people use it, is that people are playing around, experimenting around, which is all fine. I mean, we all learn through experimenting. That is perfectly fine. But I see a lot of, and talking to a lot of companies where even executives, chief executives, and also a lot of people are playing around. They're uploading like customer data onto any free of charge AI tool, not ring fence, nothing is there.
Yeah, see that
They are
many times.
uploading internal financial data. Some are even installing stuff locally on their notebook,
Yeah,
then giving their credit card number, their personal financial and everything to AI. And so isn't this like, as long as you do it for your personal stuff, okay, I would see it a bit risky, but especially when you're doing that with your company data and even worse with your customer data,
yeah,
isn't that also an issue that maybe a lot of people forget and they are jumping on the AI train and saying, okay, well, this is automating my campaign. I'm freeing up
yeah,
resources. I'm freeing up time. So let's just give everything to an AI platform and then everything runs. So isn't that a
yeah.
risk?
No, it's absolutely true. For you, that's point number two. I mean, it's in my top three as well, right? So
Yeah.
if I have to just kind of select somewhere, this is the first one, second one, or the third one or so. Somewhere there, it's we are making up our top threes.
Okay, so that definitely is something that people need to be cautious on, and then also to make sure they involve, of course, data security officers within the company and educate the people to be conscious of what kind of data to upload where and how to use that. Because otherwise, I mean, on the one hand side, you're exposing yourself to like your competitor, to markets, to like it can
Yeah.
backfire on you. And on the other side, it can also have legal implications. So we also always need to be a bit careful on this one, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, Christian, but I would say a lot of times the challenges companies will face, and this is kind of what we see with our customers, quite a bit of time. The term that is being set up in the around this area is called guardrails, right? So guardrails basically means that you have your AI, which is within, let's say, a certain it has certain functionality. It's expected to do certain tasks or so, but then you need to be able to ring fence, exactly what the AI is supposed to do, allowed to do, and what it is not allowed to do, right? So, for example, sometimes it's better to be using the AI only to get, bits and pieces of information, what you need, for example, in order to be able to do the processing of the information, right? So you don't, for example, go out to the AI and say, well, here's an AI, here's an email, okay? Now do something with it, right? Whatever the tasks you want to achieve, right? So what is now AI doing if you just feed it a complete email, right? So it's looking at the header, the footer, who's sending the email, what time the email was sent, perhaps other personal identifiable information that you may or may not want it to know, right? And once it has seen it and then it starts to learn from it, right? So what you need to be able to do is to say, okay, your purpose, for example, of the AI is only look at the body or only look at the text part of the email. Yeah. So to be able to derive the context, for example, what you may want to be able to do, right? So those are some of the things that you have to at least fundamentally put in from your side when you are doing the design work. And that goes back again to the first pet peeve that we talked about, and this is part of doing the homework, right? Before you're actually, or sharpening the axe, before you're actually undertaking the task itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this just reminds me of one thing that is quite interesting from marketing, but also from a security perspective. And that's personalization. I mean, you know that for the last, I think the last 10, 20 years already, marketing is going more and more towards personalization,
Yeah,
depending on the interest, depending on a persona of the customer and everything, personal emails, personal display ads, whatever it is.
yeah,
Now, the interesting thing is that over the years, of course, we have seen different research, and I have also during my life and with a number of companies done a lot of tests. So in some cases, you see an uplift of like
yeah,
purchase intent by 60 to 80% if you have personalized messaging. In some cases, the difference is not so big, but in general, it was always seen as something positive. Now, in the age of AI, and what happened in the last 12 months is actually that more and more consumers, more and more potential customers feel a bit intimidated by hyper personalization.
yeah.
Because on the one hand side, if you
It
receive
looks
something
almost
very
unreal, doesn't it? I mean, I mean, you can see the stuff which is specifically targeted towards you, and you're reading it and you're looking at it, and it looks unreal. I mean, at least for me, at the current stage, it turns me off. You know, I do not know about you, for example.
Absolutely, especially if it's like if it's a company with whom I'm working very regularly, and I know
Yeah,
they know a lot about me. They should know it. It's perfectly fine. But what is happening now is that a lot of people, and there's research that's saying that by through too much personalization, actually the purchase intent is cut down by half. And the
yeah,
reason is that on the one hand side, this hyper personalization feels, like you said, artificial. Everybody knows, okay, it's AI generated. And the second thing, and this comes back to what we discussed before about data security, that people are saying, okay, wait a second. How do you know all of this about me? I mean, that's suspicious. So we always need
yeah,
to be careful to personalize for our customers, but also to be conscious to not overdo it.
yeah. No, I think you're right. So if I was to kind of, kind of talk about the top threes, at least from my side, the CMOs and the marketing folks out there, they need to look at. I think the number one is, you need to do your homework, right? So whenever you're taking on a task or a project or so, you got to make sure you understand what is it that you're attempting to achieve in order for it to go forward. We are talking also about the ROI, and you have to be mindful. We are kind of, I don't know if I should say 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or how we should to classify it, because ROI often, when you're working with AIs and you have incremental successes or so, to be able to make sure that you work together with your finance person to be able to quantify that, right? Because the next time around, I think it becomes a bit of a challenge. And then, of course, it's also really important for everybody to know that the AI, or at least a general purpose AI, is not going to fix everything. So you need to be able to orchestrate things properly. And potentially you might need 2 or 3 different AIs in order to be able to fulfill the workflow or the task that you're attempting to work on. And I think, hyper automation, hyper automation, this hyper personalization, I
Personalization.
think also is a really, really good one.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
to a certain degree, I love the joke that you and I were making about, I think we were doing it in the last round as well, that everybody is working with the same, I don't know, AI or so, that tool that's out there, right? They say, design me a banner, design me everything, and you go to a mesa, the one of the events or so, and all the all of them are
Everything
the
looks the
same,
same. Exactly,
yeah,
and this basically is funny that you say that, because this is when you would ask me about what are the top 3 mistakes to avoid in marketing when looking at AI. One of them is the sameness trap, I would call it.
yeah,
Exactly like you said, and there are so many things. Like you probably also have your LinkedIn feed full of people saying, okay, this is how you should write email. You get all the same text. It looks similar if you exchange the logo, if you exchange the offering. Basically, it's all the same. I recently saw that somebody was promoting on LinkedIn a book. I will not mention the name of the author, but it's along the lines of, okay, turn your AI slop into LinkedIn posts that people actually read. And basically there was one guy who was writing a book and not saying, okay, be more creative, think about your customer, but saying, okay, go on, continue with your AI rubbish, but this is how you tweak it so it doesn't look like AI. I mean, isn't this completely bizarre?
Yeah, I mean, and again, for the audience out there, the content we're discussing today is not AI generated. It's from
It
the
is.
wealth of experience from Christian's background, my background, that we are bringing it forward. So perhaps it's not as polished, as an AI might be able to package it or something like that. But I think, this is our raw emotions, our raw feelings about the topics, and
It
yeah,
is.
I hope the audience out there is at least enjoying it a bit, and not
Enjoy and
AI
appreciate,
version.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe we should
But
start
they
calling
should,
it rustical or something like that. Perhaps give it some kind
yeah.
of cool name out there or something to that effect.
Yeah. And maybe they can do it much better than we do, and that is fine. And if we spark this kind of thought or those kind of thoughts with the audience, I think we've already achieved something. Because I think one important thing is also, when looking at CMOs, but also other leaders, is to really encourage and also empower their people to try out new things, not just go to ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Claude and ask a question and then take it. But try out things, be innovative, have the courage to do new things and do new ways. And yeah, you'll hit into a road bumper every now and then. But this is how we develop as people, how we develop our people, and how we progress. And then we are also avoiding the sameness trap
Yeah.
that sometimes
No,
we
I
see
mean,
out there.
AIs are fantastic, right? I would be the first one to tell everybody, please, think about using AI. And of course, we have the people out there who are working towards the regulation of the AI and so forth. If you want to stay one step ahead in terms of what is happening and so forth, a lot of times, these things are driven by common sense, right? So the stuff that you had done, in the past on the non-AI topics, a lot of that stuff actually applies, into the AI world as well, right? It's just perhaps it's a little bit different, right? The applying of it is a little bit different. But just kind of remember, if you're driving a vehicle, as an example, and the question then is, what is it? The purpose of the vehicle is to go off-roading, or is it to travel long distances or something like that, right? It's not one thing that can literally do everything, right? It's the same thing with AIs, right? They're at an early stage. It's really, the whole stuff is at the infancy. Perhaps in 5 years, what we are discussing here is absolutely not applicable, right? I hope it's still bits and pieces people can still get out of it, but at least for today, what we are discussing is very relevant. It is very impactful, and honestly putting it, if the CMOs are not taking heed to some of the topics that we are covering here, it can become a very, very difficult situation, not only for them but also for the companies, where they're bringing
Okay.
the stuff for.
Absolutely. So if I look at my notes and just to summarize what we discussed, so we wanted to look at the most severe mistakes CMOs should avoid. And well, you started with, okay, ignoring it, but I would say this is a no-brainer, so we don't put this on the list, so nobody's ignoring it, I
Chalk
think.
it off,
But
yes.
if you look at the top three, is it fair to say that one is to have the structure fixed first? So don't wait for AI to solve all the problems. Add
Yeah.
and leverage all the benefits from AI, but
Is that the
get the
one you like the
groundwork done.
most, by the way, that AI is going to fix everything, or
It's
which one is your favorite one?
I would see this. I would see. Well, I'm not sure if I have never thought about a ranking, but I would rank that. Okay, fix the groundwork first. Don't wait for AI to bring peace on earth and solve all the problems. Number
Peace on
two,
earth. Yeah,
yeah, some people
absolutely.
even expect that. Number two for me would be the whole security thing. So be mindful of where your
Yeah.
data goes, and especially your customer data. And number three would be avoid the sameness trap. So be
Yeah,
unique, leverage AI, but be unique, be courageous, empower your people. So this would be
yeah.
my top.
And by the way, again, just, you should remind us as well, if people have questions, because I think after we did the first podcast, we got a lot of positive feedback, by the way. So thanks to all of you guys out there who gave the positive feedback on the topics that we were covering. Um, but it's I think it's good to have that. But at the same time, if you have questions regarding how some of the stuff actually gets done or implemented, or how would you avoid certain situations or so, do reach out. Do reach out. I mean, we are reading the comments, we're reading the feedbacks. A lot of you guys who are actually watching these actually know both of us personally. So, your comments, inputs are absolutely always welcome.
Absolutely. Good point. And yeah, so we're planning some more discussion rounds here, and we always take on wishes or examples that people want us to discuss, and maybe
Yeah.
guests invite. Cool. Thanks, Rajat. Was a pleasure talking to you as always. Looking forward to what is your the next wallpaper you show us on screen when we do the next recording.